get into it. Quarterbacks, I'll start us off, boys. My quarterback rises. Before I get into this section, just a quick mention that obviously Fitz's injury, huge impact. I had him very high. I love the Fitz magic. Thankfully, wasn't allowed to pick him up basically because the guy was asleep who has him. So shout out to Pisa of college football fame. Fitzpatrick, obviously a faller. Therefore, Heineke, a riser. But let's be real. Probably not that fantasy relevant till we see him and if he balls out. But the guys, I actually had Wilson very low in my rankings. Like, I'm sort of disgraced of how low I had him. We're talking, I think I had him at 22. And he only had like 20 attempts or something. And he just still cooked. So, I just think he'll throw that many touchdowns. I think he's just like a lock for top 10. I don't think he'll be elite, but just with, as I mentioned, his scoring ability, they're not going to run many touchdowns in. So, I reckon, shit call from me. Jared Goffney, another riser. I'm sure most people would have him in the risers if it was like, 5 people long, but you guys might not have him because we only can pick a couple. But things that I enjoyed, 57 attempts, pretty hard not to have bulk yardage when you're throwing it 57 times. He also had 5 red zone attempts, so suggesting that they favor the pass instead of the run in the red zone, which is always ideal to a fantasy quarterback's credentials. And QB faller, I had this bloke at number 13, and Curtis won't like me saying this, but it's Carson Wentz. He had 3 red zone attempts, and their offense looked pretty average, I thought. Looks like it's going to be a run-first offense, great O-line, good running backs. So I think Wentzy might just be a little bit of maybe a system QB this year when the run game doesn't work. They wheel him in, or if the game script suits. So, I don't know. I still think he has upside, but I don't know, that worried me. Only 3 red zone attempts. But I'll pass it over to Curtis. Who are your QB risers and fallers, brother?
I'll keep it short. Riser, Winston, self-explanatory. Faller, Fitzpatrick, self-explanatory. Play on.
Yeah, I found that quarterback's hard, actually, so I respect the quick nature of it. Pilch, who have you got, brother?
Riser, Jalen Hurts. I actually had him high from the start, but the man absolutely balled and actually looked elite throwing as well. It looks like Devonta Smith and Riga look good as well, so I think he'll ball. And Faller, wouldn't buy into it too much, but I'd probably drop him a couple of places, and that is Aaron Rodgers. He's obviously going to bounce back, but I don't know. There was just a lot of talk about him not wanting to play at the Packers and all that throughout the off-season. So I'm just wondering whether the Packers might kind of capitulate a bit this season, but I guess we'll see. It wouldn't be jumping ship just yet.
Yeah, a topic that we talked about a lot last year is Rodgers a sexy rooster? So, Pilch, thoughts on his hair? Do you think? I think the hair is a disgrace. Like, I think it's lowered his rating like a lot. I don't know about you, but I don't think it's a good look.
I think it's almost as disgusting as Pilch's beard right now, but
so it's a good hair then, mate. But I just think it detracts from his dilf look a bit. So therefore it lowers his.
Like, if you told me A-Rod had long hair, I'd be like, oh, he's going for like that cabin, rugged, sexy dilf look. But I don't think he pulled it off, and he just looked like some old bloke. So it looks like some old bloke with like long hair. Weirdly, like
he's got the grey streaks going through it as well. He just looks old. Looks old and homeless.
Yeah, not the play from A-Rod. So maybe he trims that up and they get back on the winning board, because I think that was a big factor in the loss. But yeah, Pilch, Jalen Hurts, how high do you reckon he can be? Do you reckon he legit has like top 5?
Upside.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty high on him as well. But
I'm not.
Or what don't you like about him, Kurt?
Well, I just think that they played Atlanta and everyone's getting on the bandwagon, and we're going to come to the recollection that Atlanta is the worst defense in the NFL, and he's chucked up 27 points or something like that against an Atlanta D that has nothing going for it. An Atlanta team that really has nothing going for it, to be fair, because Matt Ryan stinks. So I think everyone's got on the bandwagon, everyone's high on him, and he's just going to sit in that 12 to 15 range like he was expected to be.
Yeah, I think I've got him around 9th. I don't think I'll be moving him up this week, but if he puts on a good show against the 49ers, who are a significantly better defense than the Falcons, well, maybe not. They conceded bloody touchdowns to Goff for days, but we'll see how he goes. But I don't know. I like Hurts. Love a bit of a dual threat QB. Winston Kurt, are you going to be trading for him this week?
I was thinking about it, to be fair. If you... Well, you said you were getting rid of him for crumbs, mate. So, Jerry Jeudy, mate.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Legit backfires whenever you share any opinion, but it's boring if you don't.
Jerry Jeudy.
He's on the IR.
Yeah. But we've got an IR spot though, so
we do.
Could be a useful pickup.
The issue is I have two IRs in the first week.
Is most of an IR dead set?
Most it's done for the year, confirmed.
I missed
this
that.
morning.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, they probably just rested him because it was Detroit."
No, he's done. He's out. Yeah,
that's cool.
He chipped a cartilage in his knee.
Oh, so we all know who the waiver number 1 is now, boys.
I already put him. Don't you worry about that, mate.
Mate, it's actually a bad week to do well. Like, I think I'm number 8 in the waivers. And
I didn't even bother putting.
I'm just thinking everyone will forget. To be honest, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you've already got Sermon, don't you, Pilch?
You got Sermon. Yeah,
but he didn't even have a
carry. He didn't play.
Shanahan said he wasn't in the top 3 running backs.
Yeah, but he has to be now. He'll get a couple carries.
Yeah, just week. Whether his fantasy relevance.
Yeah, I've gone straight for Mitchell, but Locke, if you're watching this, if you go for him, mate, we're gonna have some issues. So,
what are you
number 2? I bet that he's not going for him, mate, because he doesn't check his team.
Yeah,
I'm 3, I believe. I think the 2 ahead of me are Quincy and Locke.
No, it's not.
Is it done on like margin or points scored?
Quinn won. I think it might be.
I'm getting it up.
I don't know. This is shit.
It's Beasley. Sorry, he's dropping to me, boys.
All right, yeah, we're rolling through the running backs because I've just realised that no one listening or watching knows what we're talking about. The running backs who I think will rise. I've got not I think will rise. Who I've got rising. I've got Damo Harris. Wasn't that high on him last week. Had him, I think, mid-20s. But he had 23 carries, 3 red zone attempts. Obviously, Sony Michel's gone. James White doesn't really have any deal in the running game there. More just a catcher. And it looks like the backfield's completely his. And he showed glimpses last year, just maybe didn't have enough volume to be that relevant. Like, he was sort of just a 90 to 100 yard rusher every week and didn't have any catches. But this week he had 3 targets as well. So if he can start getting 1 touchdown a week, couple catches, all of a sudden he's getting, 15, 16 a week, and he's an RB2. So I think he's a riser. I've got Pilcher's boy, why have I just forgotten? Deandre Swift. I forgot his first name for a second. I was going to call him Jermichael, but he had 11 because I was thinking of, that's who I was thinking of from our last chat. He had 11 targets, which is just outrageous as a running back. As a lover of JD McKissick, pretty much a lover of any running back who just plays as like a wide receiver. And if the game script keeps going as it was last week for Detroit, he's going to be used more as a pass catcher than a running back, and that's certainly not a bad thing for fantasy. Pair 10 to 15 carries with 8 to 12 targets. That's a pretty frightening combo with a massive floor. And then the other one, I've got another Detroit boy. Was low on him last week, but Jamal Williams had 9 targets, which is just, as I mentioned before, same thing goes. Pretty silly. My running back fallers, I've got Antonio Gibson. Don't talk shit, Kurt. Not in the mood. He only had one red zone touch, and I just think the Washington offense as a whole has taken a bit of a hit from Fitzy's injury. I just think their point scoring potential has decreased significantly. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I don't see them scoring much more than 20 points a week until Fitzy comes back. So, yeah, Gibson, he'll get a lot of volume, but not necessarily the scores that you need. In that same conversation, JD McKissick drops for me. I had him pretty high. I had him on my bench, actually, and he whipped up less than 1. And I've got Pilcher's boy, not Pilcher's boy, Curtis's man. Austin Eckler had 0 targets. And people were saying maybe it's because he's injured or whatever. I don't see how getting a target is like, if someone was injured, you'd think they'd get targets, not carries, because carries you're getting absolutely pumped. So, yeah, I don't know. That frightens me, mate. I know they looked good as a team, but maybe Herbert's going to cook too much to even look down at Eckler. That's what I think the ESPN description said, that the Chargers were just doing too well, and he was thrown too far to get down to Eckler, those check downs. But if the Washington D line's not enough to get Herbert doing check downs, worried for you, brother. Kurt, what do you think about that? Who are your running back rises and falls?
Got a few rises. First one, gotta have to have Tyson Williams, just because of the injuries to all the Ravens RBs. So got to back him in for a reasonable year. Like, I'm talking, could actually, find a way to people starting lineups. And then got a couple winners on Quincy's, Henderson and Mont. I both thought they looked pretty elite, and we'll be trying to trade for both of them. So, yeah, I'm big on both of them as winners. And I've also got my man Chubb, because all I've heard from you boys is, he's like a 12, he's not that good, he's just got to produce, 15 every week, la-di-da-di-da. Well, not you, more Pilch,
thanks,
more
brother,
Pilch just abuses him. And let's be honest, he's a force to be reckoned with, lads. So I've got high trade value on him. So yeah, and then obviously as well Mitchell, because of the Mostert injury. Then some losers. I'm kind of worried about Eckler as well, to be fair, but I feel like that might have just been a single week kind of game script injury, that kind of stuff. So bit of hope. I'm worried about Saquon. That O-line looks dog shit for New York. He looked like he was struggling, still obviously recovering from an injury, but for a man who's, universally considered a top 5 running back when healthy, it's a certainly concern that they've got such a weak offensive line, and I feel like it really might prohibit his productivity. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, definitely. Interested to see if I can get Eckler off your hands then, mate. But we'll do some business off air. Can't be airing our laundry, mate. Pilch, who have you got here?
RB rises, obviously the Niners bloke, Eli Mitchell. But the bloke I was probably most impressed with was Henderson. Just had like 80% of the carries. Michelle was pretty much a non-factor. And Bears run D, top of the range in the NFL, and he ended up balling in the second half. So he could be an absolute prospect. Too bad I'm getting him off Quincy, but that's a different story for another time. RB Fallers.
Are you?
Different story for another time. RB Fallers are Zeke. Quite worrying. That's all I'll say. Could be a repeat of last season. And Zach Moss was my other one. something weird going on with Moss. He was a healthy scratch, and people are saying he may have broken like a intra-club like rule type thing, and so they didn't let him play. But yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on there. But Singletary got every single carry, so could be quite worrying for Zach Moss, who I actually liked coming in. And
yeah, I had that jam on my bench on about Friday, and then I read that on Sunday night, and I was like, what the fuck? But yeah, that actually would make sense, Pilch, if that was the reason, because he's definitely arguably the best running back there. Definitely second best, if not first. But yeah, I definitely like the look of Tyson Williams. Reckon Pilch has got a good one there. I don't know if his ceiling's that high, because I don't think Baltimore will ever commit to just like one running back and let them rip and tear, but definitely could become an RB2 sort of situation. And yeah, Hendo and Montgomery both look sick. I was just looking at it. They're from the same draft. That draft, there's a few of them starting to sprout now. And yeah, I don't think either of them went huge in fantasy, but their volume and their ability is pretty hectic. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how those boys go. I did trade away Hendo, but I love him anyway, so I'd be happy to see him rip and tear. Next up, we've got wide receivers. My risers are Cole Beasley, 13 targets. Pretty self-explanatory there. John Brown's gone, and they signed Sanders, but he doesn't seem to be playing as big as a part. And Beasley was pretty reliable last year. Didn't have a huge ceiling because he just plays like slot and never really has huge yardage, but in a PPR league, very handy potential flex option, especially when the buys start rolling around. And then my other one's DJ Chark. I think he only had 3 catches, but 12 targets. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence has an interest in him, and he was I think he was around 20th in 2019 in PPR. So if he can get back to that sort of volume, and maybe Jags improve a little bit from what they were in 2019, because I think Minshew was maybe the quarterback then, he could be a decent player. But yeah, I know you guys don't think he's any good because he can't catch the footy, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And then my only faller is Calvin Ridley. He had 8 targets. He's like really the only man there. They have like Zacchaeus and Gage, but I think Zacchaeus didn't have a target. Gage had 2. The wide receivers as a unit only had 10 targets. That's my main concern. A lot of checkdowns, a lot of hit-ups to Hurst and Pitts. So yeah, I'm a little bit scared about Ridley. Think he's going to get a lot of attention from defenses because obviously, apart from Pitts, he's really the only frightening piece to defenses. So reckon he'll be getting 2-man looks pretty much every week. And he had no red zone attempts either. So the only thing in his favour is game script. Like Atlanta are going to be 70-0 down every week, and Matt Ryan's just going to throw the footy. But yeah, don't really like much about Atlanta at the moment. Bring back Todd Gurley because why not? Pilch, who have you got rising and falling in the wide receivers?
I'd be more than happy to tell you, mate. Your man Deebo Samuel, someone that none of the experts, especially the ones that I follow, rated highly at all. They were all on Ayuk, and it was just the complete opposite story on the weekend. We'll see what happens for the rest of the season, but 180 yards is just ridiculous. So he looks insane. And then I got Corey Davis. Once again, looks like the clear Jets number 1 WR. Wilson and him had a good connection, had the most targets by far, touchdown, I think over 100 yards too. Plays on the Jets, but should get some nice volume. And then Cooper Kupp, would not be surprised if this is a Metcalf Lockett type thing where he just alternates weeks with Woods. But Stafford and him just looked like they had an insane connection. Every play, even on Woods' touchdown, Stafford looked at Kupp first, wasn't open, then looked at Woods. Woods only had 70% of the snaps. Kupp had 100. And I've also heard that Kupp and Stafford have been having breakfast together each week, watching tape. So he could break out as the number one there at LAR, which is good for my fantasy side. And then fallers, as a result, I've got Woods there and also Ayuk, just from what I mentioned about Cup and Samuel.
Yeah. No, that's definitely fair enough. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Ayuk. A bit weird. Like, I don't know what his snap count was, but yeah, there was injury concerns going into it, so I'm not that confident that Devo's a weapon, but hopefully I'll lure some boys into some trades. Curtis, what do you got here, mate?
I'll keep it just a single one for the risers, and that's going to be AB for me. I personally thought he looked absolutely unreal against the Cowboys. He just looked like his old self. Obviously, there is a bit of a concern with the volume of targets, given they're a three-headed monster with the addition of two pretty solid tight ends as well. So. And also two solid running backs. So there is a volume concern, but I mean, he just looked dominant, to be fair. And even when he was, kind of double teamed as well, or he was just in the thick of a zone, he still managed to make some pretty outrageous catches. So I feel like you might have a return to some 2018 kind of standards, but maybe not necessarily in terms of fantasy. And then a few followers. I had Kenny Goliday, was a big one for me. He that New York offense just looks like an absolute joke, to be fair. Their offensive scheme just looks uninventive. And it just looked kind of predictable. I was watching a few YouTube vids from our professional commentators on the game, and they just said that they could kind of just call out what the play was even before it happened. So it looks like a bit of a concern. And then on another one on my team has to be Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, he was looking elite up until halfway through to the first third of that third quarter, and then obviously got injured. So I had really high expectations of Jerry, and unfortunately, his injury for the next 6 or so weeks is a concern and dropped him down quite a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Denver with the targets there. Does KJ Hamler become fantasy relevant, that sort of stuff? Or does Sutton go back to being a genuine WR1? But yeah, spicy stuff. We'll keep it going here because we have been here for a while. I don't want you boys to waste your days talking Boris, but tight end rises and falls. I've got my man who I drafted but traded away, Jared Cook, as my riser. Had him fairly high anyway, higher than the experts, but still will probably increase him again this week. He had 8 targets, 2 red zone targets as well. Herbert just going to be throwing the nut. Hunter Henry's gone. Donald Parham, or whatever his name is, didn't have many targets like being predicted. And Cook, yeah, looks like he could be the main tall target for Herbert to hit. And then James O'Shaughnessy is another one. Not sure if he'll be fantasy relevant because you obviously, unless you're in a massive league, you have to be a tight end 10 or 15 to be cared about. But Trevor Lawrence threw to him 8 times, and yeah, they look like they could have a bit of a connection. Obviously, as Trevor gets better over the season, that could be one to watch. Tight end fallers, I've got Logan Thomas. He was my number 4 going into the week, and he had 3 targets, and obviously Fitzy going down hurts him. He's still a red zone threat, but as I keep mentioning, just not on the... I've gone off the Washington offense, so yeah, if he's not going to get volume, then he's pretty irrelevant. Another one I don't like is Mark Andrews. Lamar only had 30 attempts. Mark Andrews had 0 red zone. One of the other tight ends even had a red zone target, and Andrews didn't. And Andrews only had 5 targets in general. The receiving core around him is strengthened, and I think he's been top 6 the last 2 years, but I reckon that might be too big of an ask this year with the likes of Hawk, Fant, Gronkowski all probably going to improve this year. So, yeah, I think Mark Andrews' time as a bit of a weapon in fantasy could be over. Curtis, what do you reckon of the tight ends, mate?
I wouldn't. I don't know whether I'm going to call him a riser, but I'd wall it in there just because I think last year he obviously was not inconsistent, but he had those few games where he, might have had a 7 and the next game had a 40. But I feel like this year there's going to be some serious consistency to him in terms of like Kelsey kind of numbers where we're talking a minimum of 15 on fantasy, and then he can rise up to outrageous numbers like 40. So I feel like he's a serious prospect this year. In terms of Fowlers, my man Pitts, an absolute disgrace. Just don't even want to talk about him. Right. I've had enough. I've had it. Actually, and another riser for me is Hawkinson, sorry. I think it was, I don't know, I didn't expect that much this year from him, actually, given the way the Lions were looking, because I personally think they're like dog shit this year. And I just thought the whole offense is obviously going to go through Hawkinson, but I just didn't think they would even have much of an offense, period. But I mean, he's proved me wrong so far, so he's a riser in my books.
Yeah, definitely back that call. Who have you got any falls?
I had Pitts. I agree with Andrew's call as well. I think there's a concern there, and obviously, when they get Bateman back as well, that just takes more volume away from him. And then I've also got, I think Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry are also concerned, just because obviously last year they were both considered probably 2 top 10 tight ends, maybe top 15 tight ends. And I think they're just going to steal targets away from each other. And they I don't see that much fantasy value in either of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had them really low on my rankings, actually. I think John is like my 48th or something. But yeah, I think Fantasy Pros had them at like 7 or something. I was like...
Yeah, they both had them like really high, like top 15.
Yeah, I know they don't have much wide receiving talent, but like still, that's, as you mentioned, they're just going to take each other out. Pilch, who are you rocking here?
Risers, Cook was a great shout from you, and I've gone with Gronkowski. A lot of people had him lower this year, I think, just because of his age, but he balled out, had a huge snap count. And fallers, I've gone with Tonyan of the Packers, 1 catch for about 10 yards. Just looked pretty grim.
Yeah, not a fan of Tonyan, like, legit, he's just like one of those tight ends that you need a touchdown. Could be a bit like Johnny last year, where if you don't get a touchdown, you're getting less than 5. But yes, I actually rate the Gronk call. He'll be going up in my rankings. I don't think he had a preseason last year. Like, he just rolled in. Was pretty unfit the first couple rounds, and yeah, I reckon he's fully firing now and could be a nasty proposition, but obviously as an owner of a top 3 tight end, not that relevant for me.
It's a miracle! Oh yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.